Okay, morning. We're going to continue today, with the series of lectures that we have about Nusach Tefillah, or different formats of prayer, Jewish prayer. We covered already the Sephardi format, the Ashkenazi format, and today we're doing something very unique and different. Today we're going to talk about the Italian format. People think that today, it depends who you're asking. If, for example, if you're going to ask a secular Jew in Israel, there are religious Jews and non-religious Jews. If there's a little bit more, they say, okay, these are needed kippah, that's about it. If you ask a religious Jew, he's going to tell you, well, there are Sephardim, there are Ashkenazim, there are Nusach Sfar, there are Hasidim, there's this Hasid, and that Hasid, there's Lubavitch, and then there are secular Jews. Okay. However, if you ask the Goy, there's only Jewish or not Jewish, and it's something for us to remember and to understand that. The bottom line, doesn't make a difference. However, the more you look into issues of prayer, the more you see what I think is a beautiful traditions there were. Today, we're trying to segment it everybody. We're trying to put everybody into a drawer, into a box, to codify everybody, and we lose a lot for that. A great example, to my opinion, is what we are about to do today, which is Nusach Italia, the Italian format of prayer, or also in its other names that it's known, Minhag Italiani, or Minhag Bnei Roma, the sons of Rome, or Minhag Loazim, like Me'am Loez, Loazim. And that was the format of prayer which was accepted by the Italian Jews who did not come from an Ashkenazi or Sephardic origin. Of course, it's divided because of migration. We'll see more to the north were the Ashkenazi Jews, and then to the south, especially after the expulsion from Spain, and because of the proximity, southern Italy, there were a lot of Sephardic Jews. Now, the unique format of tefillah to the Italian Jews, which we said it's called Minhag Loez or Minhag Loazim, it is the format of prayer that was used by those who speak Latin. There was a common language at the time, was Latin, and it's fascinating because from a halachic point of view, those people are not determined by halacha or by poskim that are either Ashkenazic or Sephardi poskim. There are, which the Sephardim go after the Shulchan Aruch, and the Ashkenazim after the Ramah and everybody else that follow him with the remarks that they had and so on. But rather those sages of Rome, like Sefer Shvilei HaLeked of Rabbi Tzedkiah ben Avraham HaRofeh, he took that, and then the abbreviated version of Sefer Tanya, no Hat Tanya of the Lubavitch, but Sefer Tanya that was written by Rabbi Yechael ben Rabbi Yekutiel min Anavim. They both lived around the 13th century. And so is to Rabbi Moshe bar Yekutiel from Rome, which lived at the end of the 14th century. For example, they allowed from Sefer Tadir to eat, for example, legumes on Pesach. Or they make 2 brachot on Tefillin. Or they would eat roast on Pesach night. From those books, there were halachot, laws, and minhagim, traditions, with different variations and different formats that were later on printed at what's called Machzor Bnei Roma, the Roman, Siddur, call it this way. Now, we already said before that they halachically are different, but the Jews of Italy have a format of tefillah which is a unique format of tefillah that is not Sephardi nor Ashkenazi or Nusach Sfard, like Hasidish, and they are not influenced so much by Kabbalah that came in and really changed a lot, both from Sephardi and Ashkenazi format of tefillah to the point that Ashkenazi format changed so much it became Nusach smart. It's all Kabbalistically oriented. In Italy, of course, there are a few communities that are from Spain that did pray in Nusach Sfarad, and some communities that came from Germany, the daven in Nusach Ashkenaz, but as we said, Nusach Western Ashkenaz, which was mainly in northern Italy, but rather they daven in Nusach Italia. Therefore, the Nusach Italia, the Italian phrase, is not the total Nusach or the overall Nusach of the Jews in Italy, but rather those who were established there from the time, basically from before the Roman expulsion, and these are called Loazim. Even though it was a dominant Nusach Tfilah in Italy, the Italian format did not really spread outside of Italy, unlike the Sephardi or the Ashkenazi Nusach with the Sfaradim when they migrated from Spain and Portugal throughout the Middle East and parts of Europe. Because the Sfaradim came from Spain and Portugal. Some of them went down this way to Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, and so on and so forth. And then Egypt. Or they went from Spain down to Sardinia, Sicily, Italy, from there to the Balkans, Sarajevo in former Yugoslavia, Saloniki in Greece, Turkey, Bulgaria, some Romania, and then down to Syria and Lebanon, and so on and so forth. The Ashkenazim went from Western Europe to East Europe, Central and then East Europe. The Italians stay wherever they are. So it's a very unique, almost like endangered species format of tefillah that unfortunately most people are not even aware of that. The Italian Nusach in few places came out of Italy, and it came to other communities in the Middle East, for example, in Kushta, which is also known as Istanbul today, or in Saloniki, in Greece, which today, at the time it was a part of Turkey, there were Italian shuls until basically World War II. Until World War II. Needless to say, there was also a great connection, especially with the Sephardi Kehilot, in places like Saloniki and in Izmir in Turkey, with the Jewish community of Venice, to the point that in World War II, I shouldn't say unfortunately, not a lot, but there were Jews from Saloniki in Greece that were able to get an Italian passport because they were originated and they were formatted in that Kehillah. They were able to get Italian passport and basically escape for a while, being deported to Auschwitz and all the other places. Today, there are mainly two other communities besides in Italy that pray in this Nusach, in Yerushalayim and in Netanya, and which the central one is in Yerushalayim, as we call it, Minhag Bnei Roma. I wanted to visit that shul years ago, but I came a few times. It's right there in the center of Yerushalayim, near Ben Yehuda. It was always closed, it was like, whatever. I want to buy a siddur from there. My father-in-law, Alav Shalom, when he went to Europe, he went to Italy and went to Rome and to Venice, and he was very impressed by the way they did services in those places and how they wore. Because of the great migrations of Jews from places like Libya, because there were all these places that Italy had colonized after the state of Israel until the end of the 60s, the end of the in the 20th century, in the 60s, the Nusach Sfaradim became more dominant in central and southern Italy, kind of taken over because there was a lot of people from Libya, places like this. Algeria, Tunisia, and Morocco mainly went to France, where Tripoli, which is Libya, went to Italy. I have relatives that are Tripoli Jews, but they live in Italy. Now, the Italian format is being characterized that even though it's mainly based on the format of Bavel, still has within itself some very old formats of the prayer that they used to pray in the land of Israel, and it is really the most ancient way or format of prayer that we have today, besides the, what is it called, Bnei Romania, which is not the Romanians, but the Roman Utes, which is the Byzantine Jews. This is the most ancient one that we have. Italian is much more, it's much earlier than the Sephardi and the Ashkenazi, and by all means the newer format, which is the Nusach Sfarad. And I'm going to bring you some of the difference between the Italian format of tefillah, which I found to be interesting. Not all of them, it's just too much. I'm not aware of all of them, but it's a few of them. For example, in Tfilat Arvit of Shabbat, instead of saying Birkat HaMa'ariv Aravim and then Birkat Emet, right? They say they have a special tefillah for Shabbat. In this first special verse of that tefillah of Shabbat, the way they start Kabbalat Shabbat starts from Shir HaShirim. Then they say Lechu Ner Hanenah. Some kihilot start from Mizmor LeDavid, sitting down, not standing. Then they say Bameh Madlikim. Then they say Kaddish Israel. Then they say Lecha Dodim, Mizmor Leyom HaShabbat, standing up. However, in the Tfilat Amidah of Shabbat, they say Nusach Umehavtcha instead of saying Ata Kidashta. They say that. It's interesting regarding Kabbalat Shabbat. The whole thing that we do in Kabbalat Shabbat, in terms of saying Lecha Dodi and so on, this is much later in history. I mean, really later in history. We're talking about, the minhag of the Mekubalim in Tzfat around 1600s and so on and so forth. Now, in Birkat Kedushat Hashem, they even say the Birkat Ledor Vador, even in the Tfilah, right? Because they say Ledor Vador, the Ashkenazim say it, Sfaradim don't say it, but they say Ledor Vador all the time. And in Yamin, in the high holidays, right? Even they say it in Tfilat HaShachar during the year, and in Yamim Noraim, they say Ledor Vador Namlich La'el, right? Then they also say Ledor Vador, in Yamim Noraim, they say Ledor Vador Nagid Godlecha, which is basically the Nusach of Ashkenaz throughout the year. Between Ashrei after the Tefillah and Bal Etzion, they don't say Natseach Mizmor LeDavid. They don't say it. But rather, that Natseach is a part of the Tfilat Tachanun of Monday and Thursday, and this is probably that minhag in the rest of the Edot, the rest of the communities, to actually omit it, and they don't say, when they don't say Tachanun, during the week, they took it out. Now they take the Sefer Torah between Ashrei and Bal Etzion. They say Ashrei, and then they say Bal Etzion. And Tfilat Mincha, which is very interesting, they don't say Alenu Leshabeach. Why? Most likely because of the minhag to be masmich Tfilat Arvit le Tfilat Mincha. They daven one back to back. So they don't say Alenu Leshabeach. Similar to the original Ashkenazi minhag, also. However, by the original Ashkenazi minhag, they say Alenu Leshabeach when they don't daven Arvit immediately. They did not say that. And it's quite possible that the minhag italki, they don't say Alenu Leshabeach because there's no inyan, there's no Kabbalat or Malchut in Tfilat Mincha. And still you need to further look, because in Machzor Venezia, it says over there to say in Mincha of Yom Kippurim we have to say Alenu Leshabeach, and the question is, of course, and it's most likely that that's what the Ashkenazim did not do it when they did Mincha and Arvit back to back. They just went straight like this. Today, it's not. However, at the end, Also by the Yemenite Jews, they don't say Alenu L'Shabeach. Some Yemenite Jews, they don't say Alenu L'Shabeach in Tfilat Mincha. These things are different. I mean, completely different than what we get used to. It's very hard for us to imagine something like not saying Alenu L'Shabeach in Tfilat Mincha. It's just like weird. But the question really is, who is weird? How come we put it in, and how we change it? And today we'll say, oh, Tfilah can be changed, and so on and so forth. I mean, I see the reason why, but we need to understand that there is other things. That's why when you go, especially you go to Israel, America is a little bit more difficult, totally different animal to begin with. But when you go to Israel, I said to you a million times, I do encourage you to go to shuls that daven different than what you're aware of, than what you know of. I mean, after all, these are still your brothers. And most likely, they probably have an earlier way of prayer than what you do, what you used to. So it's like walking into a live museum. You know, why won't you do that? I sent Idan yesterday slichot by Yemenite Jews. So of course Idan listened to a part of it, not the whole entire thing, because I know he's a lazy guy. But it's very hard for you to understand what they're saying, right?
Yeah, they are.
It's very hard. So instead of really like appreciating it, it's like people think, for example, that if I can read the Gemara in Aramaic, I would understand how they spoke Aramaic back then. I guarantee to you, again, 11:11, I guarantee to you that if you go back in time through some kind of like a time wall, a wormhole or something like this, go to the past, you would, regardless of how fluent you are, you would not understand what they're saying. And it's like bizarre how they speak. A remnant to that is if you speak. I heard a woman talking in Hebrew, Aramaic, Caucasian dialect. I don't understand a word she says. And believe me, I can read the Gemara. I don't understand a word she's saying. It's completely different. Completely different. So these are some of them. For example, in Birkat Hamazon, after saying the three brachot midoraita, before the bracha midoraita, tov ve'ametiv, they used to say another pasuk to basically show a complete separation between the three. In Kaddish, they always say le'ela ve'ela, right? Like the Nusach Baladi, the Temani Baladi, which is the original Yemenite format, and like Nusach Bnei Romania, which is the Byzantine Jews, they always say La'ela or La'ela. Sfaradim don't say it. Ashkenazim only say it during Rosh Hashanah and until throughout the high holidays. On Shabbat in Birkat Hamazon, they always, instead of saying Rachem, right, they start with Nachem. And even earlier formats of Birkat Hamazon, they say the bracha is being sealed with Menachem Yerushalayim, as Tosfot says in brachot, in Nusach Kol Nidrei, right, which we're going to say in Rosh Hashanah, in Yom Kippur. It's not in Aramit like most of the places. It's done completely in Ivrit, in Hebrew, just like the Byzantine Jews. They don't say it in Aramit, they say it in Ivrit. Right? Instead of saying Kol Nidrei, they say Kol HaNedarim, right? It's very weird. You'll go berserk. Even people who don't understand a word in Aramaic will go crazy because you're changing it. Meanwhile, we changed it. And that's the thing. The Chazan, you read the Tfilot, like most congregations, read the Tfilot out loud. However, not like the Ashkenazi minhag, when he reads the beginning and the end of every paragraph in Psukei de Zimra, and only Birkat Baruch Hashem Leolam that we say after Ashkivenu, that bracha is said in quiet. It doesn't say out loud, it's said in quiet. Most likely to show that this bracha was instituted during the time of the Geonim. And of course, like many other Sfaradim, Kehilot Sfaradim, unlike that we have in the Sidurim today, the Kabbalat Shabbat does not include Mizmor, Lechunei Ranena, and all the other, and it just starts right away from Mizmor LeDavid. You still find it in Kehilot Yerushalayim. That's why Some Sidurim says, V'yesh omrim lechu nerana, V'yesh omrim zeh, V'yesh omrim zeh. Today everybody sings the whole thing. It's like all sit along together, pull out the bonfire, make a big kumbaya. But this is a relatively new minhag, especially amongst Haradim. They just started from Mizmor LeDavid. The Kedusha in all the tefillot, in Nusach Italia, is Keter. They say Keter. They don't say Nagdishach or Nekadesh, they say Keter. And the biggest difference is really when they say the Haftarot. The Haftarot, they have their own entire list, which is their own thing and so on. Talking about Slichot, so they're starting Slichot either on Monday or on Thursday before Rosh Hashanah. So if Rosh Hashanah happened to be on a Monday, they start on a Monday the Monday before it. And if Rosh Hashanah starts on a Tuesday, they start on a Monday, a week and a half before that. Now, there's many other brachot in terms of Amidah of Shabbat and some kehilot also were changed, like the original Nusach or Tefillot Shabbat in Padova and in Jerusalem stayed the way it is, but a lot of them are really changed. Some of the way of the piyutim, right, which we talk about, which are religious poems that were written, were collected from various places. Like some of them are like Nusach Ashkenaz, which is different than Nusach Sfard. However, in Nusach Italia, we still have remnants of very old Eretz Israel piyutim, and some of them are also different in Hosha'anot and so on and so forth. In some kehilot, they do say Achot Ktana in Leil Rosh Hashanah, and the piyut Et Sha'arei Ratzon in the Italian Slichot is said as a slicha during Tfilat Ne'ilah, rather than like the Sephardi version when they say it before Tkiyat Shofar. This is just like on the tip of the fork, something to get you all hopefully interested in looking into different things. One way to really learn it well, if you don't have a congregation, which in America we don't have an Italian congregation, is really to try somehow to get yourself a Siddur. Buy a Siddur and then just look at the Siddurim the way it is. And that's what I did many times when I just got different Siddurim. I just sat down and looked and compared from what I know. But in order to compare what you know, you really need to be well versed with your Siddur, and that I would encourage you all to be well versed with your Siddur and not to say, okay, what are we saying now? Where are we? And so on and so forth. This is a part of your culture, whether you're Sephardi, whether you're Ashkenazi, whether you're Yemenite, whether you are Baal Tshuva, whatever you are. That's a part of your heritage as a Jew. That's a Jewish heritage, Jewish history. And it's not, you should not say, well, I'm Ashkenazi Jew, I don't know. Like, it's mind-boggling to me that sometimes I go to Ashkenazi rabbi and I said to him, well, in Sephardi they say, oh, really? I mean, you ever siddur in your shul as a rabbi? You never thought about going to open a siddur of your people that just come from a different, cultural background to look at what it is there? It's not so common among Sfaradim, because many Sfaradim do daven with Ashkenazim, but I yet to see an Ashkenazi. I saw one case here and there, but feeling comfortable going to Sephardi, and that's something that we should give our mind on. This is a part of who we are as people. We're not different nations. Ashkenazim are not a different nation than Sfaradim, that are not a different nation than Srugi Kippah or Hasidim. We are all Jews. And that's something that we should be aware. And that's why I'm doing this series, to just make you exposed to you other types of formats and actually see the beauty in that. And that's something that is wonderful. Don't forget, we all pray to one God, to the same God. And these are all cultural variations. And let's not make them into Torah Missinai. So, have a nice day.